So, good morning, everybody. I'm Jacquie from Absolute Corporate Events, and to date, Freer and Friends has been about properties and venues. But today, we're going to look at the airlines because that's really important for the MICE industry as well. And joining me, I've got the guru of the flight and aviation industry, Jacquie, who owns All About Flights. And from Ethihad Airlines, we have Maris. So I've known both these guys a very long time, and they know a lot about the aviation industry. So, Jacquie, would you like to introduce yourself and then Maris?
Sure, thank you. I'm Jacquie from All About Flights. We're based up in Manchester. We're a very small agency that specialises in the provision of MICE logistics. Although set up as a traditional travel agent, and we do the role of that, we do purely concentrate on group movements, whether it be incentive, staff training, product launch or congress. Whenever there's a group 10 or more, that's where we're involved. We help event companies plan the logistics of an event, where the event's going to take place and how best to move those passengers around. We do as little as a ballpark quote, just to give people an idea for budgetary purposes at the start of planning an event, right through to detail logistics, assisting with all the ticket issuance and even travelling with the guests and being on site with them if the event dictates that. So we have years of experience in group movements across a huge variety of airlines and destinations. And Jacquie and I have known each other for quite some time with Absolute Corporate Events, and we've worked with them successfully on many events historically and hopefully many more in the future.
Definitely. And Maris, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Jacquie. Thank you for the great opportunity. So my name is Maris, and I work for Ethihad Airways. And I guess secretly, like Jacquie, I'm like to think of myself as a MICE guru within the Ethihad Airways, and I've been with them for the last 4 years. And my previous experience within MICE is with destinations. So I worked previously for the Dubai Convention Bureau, before that with the Hong Kong Convention Bureau, but always in the MICE. So I would like to bring that experience with the airline industry and with Etihad specifically. So what I do with Etihad is work with a number of clients, corporates, agencies, be it sports, individual, and to really make a group travel as easy and convenient and price effective as possible. Well, that's for group quote, individual. And we also love working with agencies to take them to Abu Dhabi and destinations beyond, to really showcase them what the destination is about and really to put the airline experience to life.
Yeah, and I've worked with both of you, and what I can say is the personal experience, and you're both always on the end of a phone, and you've always been great. So thank you for joining me today as well.
Thank you.
So, Jacquie, we've heard a lot in the press about whether it's safe to fly or not, and that airlines have HEPA filters. So it's like being in a hospital. But can you tell us a little bit more about that? So I don't think people really understand it.
Well, only from my personal view. I'm no scientist, Jacquie, as you know, but I can tell you what I believe them to be. HEPA filters have been in commercial aircraft since the early 80s, and rightly so. You've found since the COVID crisis, a lot of airlines are talking about it and repeating it. It's something they've always had. It's something that's always been the backbone of commercial aviation, but it's perhaps never been relevant to discuss it in detail before. The high efficiency filters that we're talking about are traditionally found in hospital theatres, for example, or anywhere where you need an ultra sterile, ultra clean environment. Aircraft have that because of the high turnover of air, if you like, or the recirculation of air. They work really efficiently on the aircraft, and they're designed to remove over 99% of any bacteria, moisture, viruses. I've read a lot about it pre-COVID as well as post-COVID. I personally, and this is all I can answer you for, I would be quite happy to step on an aircraft just as much as I would get in my own car and travel from A to B. I have actually flown in recent weeks, and we'll touch on that throughout the course of the conversation as to how that was, because it isn't just about the HEPA filter I want to talk to you about in terms of safety with flying and I guess the confidence to fly, you know. For us here at All About Flights, and certainly Maris at Ethihad, and I'm sure with yourself, Jacquie, and Absolute Corporate Events, we want to, I guess, instill a sense of confidence in those corporates and their ability to want to fly and make those decisions about flying in the future. What can they do to make those decisions easier? They can look at individuals' airlines' performance in terms of what are they doing. You know, the airline industry and the aircraft that you travel on have always been clean, so to speak. They are cleaned in turnaround in most cases. So certainly with the likes of Ethihad, Maris being on the call now, and that's come in from the Middle East and in turnaround here in the UK.
Yeah.
That's on the ground for quite a substantial amount of time. Compared to a low-cost airline such as Ryanair or EasyJet, for example, no disrespect to those two carriers, but they quite often operate on 30-minute turnarounds. What you've found since COVID is everybody will talk about the HEPA filters. They'll discuss how efficient they are and what they do. And I do believe they do an amazing job. And I likened it previously, not that you should quote me on this, but, you know, I would go into my local Tesco or Co-op or in my own home, and I think the air on board an aircraft is probably cleaner.
Yeah.
You know, but that technology is there for a reason, and it is one of the cleanest environments we could be in at the moment. Now, the HEPA filter in isolation isn't enough. It's also about these aircraft, keeping those aircraft in turnaround for the period of time that they need to ensure that they sanitize and clean them effectively. And from what I read with all the airlines, we have the current health and safety procedures of every airline that we operate with and work with. If any of your customers have a particular request for a specific airline, we can certainly provide that. And you find little things are being done at the moment. The products they're using to clean may have changed. They may use a more enhanced antibacterial wash than they had done before. Not saying that the one before wasn't right, it would have been right. But now they're being extra cautious. Where possible, aircraft are in turnaround longer than before to ensure a deeper clean. There's so many things that go on throughout the whole point of the journey that we'll touch on. But it might be a nice opportunity for Maris, if he's able now, just to touch on what Etihad are doing, just to give you a feel.
An example,
what an individual airline is doing over and above what they ordinarily would have done pre-COVID.
Yeah, yeah. Because it continues into the hotels as well, doesn't it? So, Maris, it would be very interesting to hear an example.
Wow, there are a lot of things really. There's about, I think I've counted about 20 plus things that Etihad has done in the last few months to make sure that the guests when they get on board are feeling safe. So starting from the really early days back in March and April when we stopped flying as well. So we invested a lot of money in making sure the aircraft are ready to fly, from adjusting the seat covers, repainting, redecorating. So really ensuring that the onboard of aircraft is really amazing and ready to welcome the guests back. But really I want to focus on the something amazing that we kind of started last month is on Etihad Wellness Ambassadors. And essentially those wellness ambassadors are dedicated cabin crew, both on board at the airport as well as online. So essentially their job is to really assure the guests, answer any questions that they might have relating to the flight, the onboard product, what they can expect when they get to the destination. How do I get about? Do I need to wear a face mask? Does the meal get served on board the aircraft? And what that? So all those cabin crew are dedicated and trained to look after the guests. And the important thing is to really not to still jeopardize the experience. The meals are still served on board of aircraft as well. And each meal goes through the dedicated quality certification process, ensuring that the quality meal you get is taste amazing and its quality superb. We kind of ensure that obviously every guest that comes on board as well also gets our wellness kit, which includes a face mask, a hand gel, and a few other things as well, to making sure that that's taken care of as well. And really just to kind of obviously cabin crews are wearing face masks, and they've really been taught to also to smile with their eyes. Whilst obviously you're not able to see the cabin crew's face, it's still kind of making sure that the customer still feels welcomed on board of the aircraft, and really ensures that's the best experience possible in a clean environment. We're also ensuring that every destination where we fly to, the aircraft is sanitized, cleansed, disinfected, and making sure the guests have the best experience. And I think now the flying on board of Etihad and potentially other airlines is probably the best experience you could really have. So the cleanliness is there, the experience is amazing, and yes, we cannot wait to have our guests flying back again.
And can you just touch on, Maris, what's happening in the Middle East? Because obviously Etihad fly to Abu Dhabi, but are we hearing any news from the Middle East?
So the Middle East is really preparing themselves to open up sooner rather than later. There's some of the destinations within the UAE already open doors for events, but again, it's Abu Dhabi is working hard to making sure that the venues and restaurants and hotels are ready for international guests as and when they are opening. So for the local market, the destination's already open. But what I've been really seeing the last couple of weeks really is the positive green shoots that I've been receiving in terms of inquiries for Abu Dhabi. Be it again we're talking to some of the cruise line companies, we're talking to the sports companies, we're talking to a number of conference delegates, we're talking about the product launches for cars, already looking and confirming the business in Q1 of next year. So the news are very, very much encouraging. And of course, F1 taking place late this year, which has been confirmed, yet might not be with the audiences, but that's a good start for events starting to take shape, take place. And as these measures comes in place in the next week or so, we should hopefully be able to advise a bit more details on what those guidelines are looking like, and as and when Abu Dhabi is open for business and welcoming MICE guests, which will be in a Q1 next year.
Yeah, it's all very interesting, isn't it? Because I guess a question for both of you is, from the agency side and looking at the corporate market, we are seeing business postponed to Q2, Q3 next year. And I guess you guys have been moving a lot of business. We're all very busy just moving business at the moment and postponing. And obviously we want those live MICE events to come back.
Yes.
But particularly, I guess, will airlines survive? Because obviously there's financial cost as well involved, isn't there, in adding all these extra measures? Will that also see an increase in costs, do you think, in terms of flights? Or will there be incentives to get people flying again? I know that's a bit of a how long's a piece of string, but it's an interesting topic, I think.
It's very difficult to know if there is going to be a fare increase, whether it is particularly down to those extra products that they're needing in turnaround, the extra personal equipment that the cabin crew are wearing. You know, the list is absolutely endless of where increases could come from. What I will say is it is inevitable. Our industry has been hit very, very hard. The aviation sector has taken a hit like no other, and still is in many ways for various different reasons, which we can touch on later. But I think what you might find, if you see a significant fare increase, it would be unfair to assume that the airline is just putting those prices up purely because their costs may have increased. I think every carrier is accepting at the moment that there are certain safety measures that have to take place.
Yeah.
And those safety measures go before the business in every measure of the word, really. What you might find is that there may not be as many airlines in existence 12 months from now as there were pre-COVID. Or for those airlines that survive, for example, if they had 8 flights a day, London, New York, for example, there might only be 5 in the future because the demand is cut and so will the offering. And you might find that the fares increase purely because of a lack of availability. Hopefully
demand
going forwards, because there will be a demand and you might not have the usual offering as airlines are making changes to the schedule. Holiday in July and August just gone. We'll start that. You know, we've seen people take their holidays because they've had them booked and they've wanted to have them booked. And I was very, very hopeful that we'll have a good Q3, Q4 following the British public making those holidays. The groups that we have in Q3 and Q4 currently are being moved on to Q1, Q2 next year, because whilst an individual family might be willing to travel, many, many corporates are not willing to put their entire workforce or their customers in that position. And we can all understand why. But I do think as travel resumes in the coming weeks, so will the confidence. For all of your corporate clients out there, somebody has to be the first.
Exactly.
Somebody has the first one to say, actually, we are going to do something in Q1. Perhaps many people are not thinking about it. And I do think we should be encouraging them to do that, but we should be encouraging them to do it with caution. Whatever, very difficult for me to sit here as a flight agency and expect people to fly unless I've done it myself. So I have. A few weeks ago, I took a flight because I wanted to see what it was like. And I have to say, every step of the way, certain things that you may take for granted have changed. So I arrived at my local airport, which is Manchester, and you're not allowed into the terminal unless you're actually flying as a passenger. Now, that's commonplace in some countries, but it's not been here. So immediately, the footfall in the terminal building has been reduced because people that are going to wave goodbye are no longer in the terminal. And that's just one simple thing that people are doing you don't necessarily think about. As you walk through the airport authority are insisting on hand sanitizer. The stations are very frequent. As you go through security, it's the most incredible time to fly at the moment. It's been so quiet and everyone's so well spaced that it doesn't feel chaotic. It doesn't ever feel like a stressful environment. When you go through to the shops, they're socially distancing like a shop or a restaurant would anywhere else. Just because you're in the terminal building doesn't mean they don't do it or can't do it. They can, because again, the passenger numbers aren't as great as they have been historically. Even down to boarding an aircraft, boarded in row number order, strictly. So, for example, row 25 to 30 would board first. Row 15 to 20 would then board. You've not got people passing each other unnecessarily. The cabin crew on the aircraft are walking through. They're coming down the galleys only when they have to. They make announcements regularly. Do not stand up for the toilet unless you can see it's vacant.
Yes.
Don't hover in the aisles. Don't pass fellow passengers unnecessarily. The food they're serving and the way they're serving it and the drink service has been done very carefully. The moment you arrive, how many times do you land home from holiday and everybody stands up to get their baggage before you've even come to a stop? The public, the travelling public, are doing what they're asked. Everybody's remaining seated as the cabin crew is saying, we will disembark only rows 1 to 5 first, and 6 to 10 and so forth. And at every step of that journey that I made, I was very, very pleasantly surprised and very encouraged to travel. More so, as I said at the start, than going on a train or a tram or a bus or getting in my own car.
Yeah.
Every single step I thought was perfectly done. So what I would say to your clients when they're thinking about the future, when they're thinking about travelling, have a look at the airlines that may operate. Choose your airline carefully on who's going to be willing to assist should you need flexibility. Also taking into consideration what it is they're doing in terms of safety. But also perhaps give thought to geography. If you live in Bristol or Cardiff, for example, are those airport authorities behaving any differently to Heathrow or Gatwick? Or if you're, all of a sudden start comparing if you have that need to compare. Is Manchester any different to Liverpool? Is Stansted any different to Luton? Take the confidence that you may have knowing your local airports well and knowing what those airport authorities are doing, because they're just as important as the airline. They're just as important on arrival as well. There's so many things that you can think about along the way and take confidence from, knowing that they're doing everything they can to keep us safe.
Yes, I agree. And actually, it's quite a nice time to be getting on a train or flying or be overseas, isn't it? Because it is quieter and it's just a nicer experience. So it is an encouraging thing to actually try and encourage people to do it.
It is wonderful. And on that note, not that it's necessarily relevant to all of your corporates, but very interestingly, I'm incredibly aware of the need to make sure that event companies like your own know what it's like. They don't just hear me talking about it. Yeah. So we as a business have decided that we'll put a trip together on the 22nd of September and we're flying people out to Rome. And every step of that journey is going to be watched closely and monitored. And we're doing a live talk from the destination to the event world to show them exactly what it was like. What was it like at Heathrow that morning? What was the aircraft like? What was the service like? How was it when you landed? How did the hotel treat you when you arrived? How did they manage that group check-in? We're doing a very live example of that. And it would be interesting post-trip for you to take a look at it. And so, in fact, one of your own colleagues is coming with us. Which is
is that my boss by any chance?
Yes. It would be interesting for you to look at it post-trip because it's important. It's important for us to see it firsthand and ensure that we are confident with the things I'm talking to you about, the steps that airlines and airport authorities are taking, that they are consistent with that. And I didn't just have a good experience that day, that it is like that all the time. That's what we need to know, that going forwards, it is like that.
And I think that's the point of these chats really, is to collaborate. And what I have noticed, there's been lots of positives about how we've all supported each other, collaborated, talked to each other, and we're all regularly talking to discuss what's happening. And as you say, Kathy, doing it is important. I've been into London via the train, abided by the rules, and had my mask on for 2 hours, etc. And everything is possible. And it is just, once you've got your own confidence, you can then pass on that personal confidence, can't you?
Yeah.
So I can't wait to get on a plane.
I know what you mean. We're all being encouraged back into our workplaces in any case at the moment. The children have resumed going back to school. We should expect a period of a few days or a few weeks where there is some uncertainty. People are suggesting the rate increases. It's inevitable.
Yes.
That will happen if all of these changes are being done at the same time. But the most important thing always is that we never overwhelm the NHS. And what I would say is let's not take any negativity that comes into the press in the next week to 10 days Because as those businesses have been encouraged back to their workplaces, and as the children have gone back to school, you are going to see a change in the reporting, I would think, because it would make sense that that will be the case. Just keep it, I guess, keep it in, what word would I use? Not keep it in moderation, but I think we'll keep it in the way that these figures are reported, and that it should just be overwhelming. So
and speak to the people that experience it, maybe. Like I stayed in hotels, and it's been an excellent experience. And you know, everybody's got their different challenges. So as you say, let's experience it. Let's pass on our experience, and hopefully that confidence. Have you got anything further to say, Maris, in tips or? What you would say in terms of one of the things I guess that's coming up in the press a lot is if we travel and then we have to isolate for 2 weeks when we get back, that is something that is a little bit concerning, definitely for the group market.
Yes, I mean, that's one of those things that we kind of, when we are choosing destinations and whether it be airlines as well, it's kind of have to take that as either a bit of pinch of salt as well, but also as a kind of a reality at the moment in time. And I know that we work very much closely with various number of governments, be it Australian, be it British, be it UAE, Maldives, so making sure that we as an airline are able to fly to those destinations and also increase our capacity of the aircraft. Because some destinations you can only carry 50 people, and then, you know, instead of having maybe 300 people typically that you might be able to fly into that destination. But luckily we have a number of processes in place. We have a COVID app that you can have a bit of fun playing with and answering 20 questions and kind of see, you know, indicating whether I have any symptoms of COVID or you don't. We have also introduced a COVID insurance to assure the guests they are safe to fly, but also should anything happen to your flight or your destination or anything like that, should you catch COVID, you'll be covered under insurance as well. And there also been amazing steps that have been done by, I'd like to mention Abu Dhabi Airport specifically. And I think if anything, this kind of this time has almost fast forwarded us into the future. I know, especially when you arrive at the airport now, everything is kind of touchless experience, voice activated check-in desks as well. And obviously you have a human check-in desk as well. So essentially you can interact with the check-in desk with the voice activation, with just using your head right to left in order to facilitate your check-in procedure. There's also contactless sterilization gates as you transit through Abu Dhabi as well, to make, you know, kind of go through this gate with that sends you like a 3-second mist and debacterializes you, if that's the word. There's self-sanitizing handrails as well. There's contactless elevators. You just show your high five, the door opens, you get into the lift. So all of this experience being made sure really that when our guests are ready to fly, all that experience has been taken away, all that stress being sort of reduced, and people are keen to travel and fly again as well. So there's lots of steps have been invested, you know, across the airlines, across destinations, across the airports. And I think where we are now, we're almost like a baby that's again starting to learn to walk before we run. And I think what we will see in terms of travel and events is a slow baby steps. You know, and again, through the experience, when we fall over, you know, we get up again and we try to walk before we can run. So I think that's what we're going to see over the next few months as a slow recovery. But as we get more confidence in our baby steps, soon enough we'll be running again.
Well, yeah, maybe, Kathy, you and I should go to this Formula One thing. That could be our next flight.
Yeah, well, I'm game, Jackie, definitely. I'd definitely go just for the flight alone and make sure the journey is as good as it can be. But sadly, there's no spectators at this year's Formula One in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, yes, you're right, aren't you? Yeah, Maris can tell us that.
The decision was made not to have the crowd, but for the event to go ahead. I think that's correct, isn't it, Maris? So that was the decision.
That's right, yes.
At Abu Dhabi. But I did wonder whether we could just go and sit on a boat and just listen to the
float around, yes. And then we'll report back how safe it was, Maris.
Yes, that sounds like a very good idea. Very good idea.
Thanks so much. It's really interesting to hear it from the airline perspective, because that will be the first part of the MICE journey, won't it? So
very much.
That starts, then we'll see hotels opening up and event management and live production coming back. So once we see the initial confidence coming back, I personally cannot wait to hear those words, welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard, Jackie.
Yeah, we'll see if you do that with Ethihad, and we'll do a whole little report.
That'll be amazing.